basically, I'm going to give you that question in a second. We take a typical company, there's no such thing, but let's say it has turnover of $100 million. And we're going to say, how much do you think is lost because of all unethical, deliberate, all dark arts, all commercial dark arts? So to give you some parameters, what do we mean by fraud and corruption in this context? I mean anything that's deliberate and unethical, done by anybody. So it could be a supplier that overcharges you, or it could be a customer that buys loads of your goods and services and then deliberately goes bankrupt, so it doesn't pay. That happens a lot. It could be an employee who gets involved with some bad guys on the outside, some external criminals, and is kind of giving up the bank details, so suddenly the bank account is empty. Could be theft, something as simple as that. So who does it? Anybody, inside or outside, suppliers, customers, external criminals, competitors, business partners, also employees. Just remember, the external parties take a very low risk for pretty high rewards. Whereas the internal parties, and we tend to focus too much when talking about internal, is that they take a very high risk. Their job, their future, their friendships, and for a very low reward usually, except senior management and maybe somewhere in the middle. Because they usually get away. So we're talking about the cost. What do we mean by cost? We mean not just financial cost in terms of money lost because the supplier overcharged us, or money lost because a whole bunch of fantastic equipment was stolen. No, we mean also the knock-on costs on culture, reputation, those soft costs, and cleaning up the mess afterwards. So basically what we're talking about is all different types of costs. Deliberate, unethical, done by anybody, inside or outside. So I want you to take a few seconds thinking about all these costs and to decide what you think is, where would you vote? And I need everyone to vote once. So in a typical company, how much is lost annually? And I just want everyone to put their hand up when I go through it. So 0 to 100,000? How many people? 100,000 to 1 million? Just put your hand up. Okay. That's 1 million to 5 million? Okay, that's middle. 5 to 7 million? Hands up high. 2, yeah. And those of you who are cynical, paranoid, and skeptical, that's most of you. That's ridiculous. That's just a very skeptical day. So obviously we had a bad morning coming to work. It is affected by things like weather and traffic. But generally, it's interesting that we get people talking about the cost of fraud and corruption being 3 to 5% of turnover per year. Now, interestingly enough, chief executives, do they think the cost in their organisation is 3 to 5%, or do they think it's lower? Answers? Yeah, generally a lot lower. An enlightened chief executive will think it's 1 to 1.1 or 0 to 0.5 to 1% in general. But when you ask, because that's quite a lot of money, if it was a chief executive of Salford University or of the university, if they were asked how much of the budget of Salford is wasted every year because of fraud and corruption, if they say 1%, they're going to be hung. So they're generally going to say it's about, we've got much better controls than Salford University, so it's going to be 0.00001. But then every chief exec in every organisation thinks they are way better than the average. They also generally think it's lower than what normal people, and you look like very intelligent people, so you think it's much higher. But what do the world statistics say? Well, there are loads of surveys. A lot of them are self-serving, so they should be watched out for. There's one done by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. It's a very well-respected survey, but it says, on average, organisations lose 5% of their turnover or cost base through fraud and corruption. Now, I think that's a bit high. But I think because they want jobs as fraud investigators, I don't think it's that high. But there is plenty of evidence from other surveys to say it's somewhere between 1 and 5% of turnover, maybe a bit more. So you're in the right ballpark. Interestingly, the British government, through its National Fraud Authority, which has no interest in saying it's high or low, they've done surveys, and does anyone know what the figure in Britain last year for the cost of fraud and corruption is? In pounds. Any guesses?
It's about 27 billion or something, isn't it?
Well, you got the numbers the wrong way around. It's 72 billion. So not bad. There was just a transposition error somewhere there. Very, very good. We got technical errors. But yes, 72 billion pounds. That is 5% of gross domestic product. So on a macroeconomic scale, we're basically saying that the cost of fraud is 5% of turnover, or sales, or what we produce, or whatever.